Good day, this is Tamish United. We are doing some kind of quick editing. Yesterday I wasn't feeling so well. I wasn't feeling well at all, but I decided to stream because it was like Monday I wanted to stream, but I took the day off. I usually don't stream on Mondays. It's only when I have a lot of work. I usually do a couple extra creative streams over the weekend. And yeah, so then I streamed Tuesday, which is the video game night, and I could only do a half hour. Did a half hour of Destiny, and then I was like, you know what, that's it. Out. And yeah, I was just getting really dizzy and nauseous, which is like perfect. Like, you don't want to get sick, but if you are going to get sick, it's best to do it the day before your doctor's appointment, and then they can see you while you're sick. If that makes sense. And so that I got really lucky with that, because this appointment was made like 3 months ago, and that's a regular checkup. And so it was kind of all day affair. My doctor's about an hour away, so I drove there, and then there's this Indian food buffet. We got to eat there. So full. I ate at like 2 p.m. Didn't eat breakfast. I ate lunch, and that was at 2. And I can't eat anything more. I just got home and it's 10 o'clock, and I thought, oh, my stomach's not so full, but I drank some water, and it was just like, oh, I shouldn't have drank that cup of water. And like, that's how full I still am. But so what happened? What took us so long? The appointment was at 4, but I got a prescription for some labs to do. So they take my blood and everything, and they test. But so we're like, oh, this is perfect. There's this hospital that I know takes my insurance, and so we usually get my labs done there, and my grandmother's labs when she needs blood tests. And so we're running over there, and it's like, okay, we have like 5 minutes to get there, and then it was like, oh, there's 2 minutes. It ended up being an hour away, which made no sense, because in real life, it was only 30 minutes, but with traffic, it took an hour to get there. So we got there 2 minutes after they closed, and I was thinking, oh, maybe there's like a couple people in there, and so they're still open. No, the lights were off, everyone was gone, the entire building was shut down. And I was like, wow, that must be really nice to have a job where at a certain time it's over. I mean, even when I was working at retail, it was like, oh, we got 5 more things to do. And even though your shift's over, it's kind of like, hey, can you stay over a little bit? And, I always did, but in the medical field, it's like, lights off, we're gone. Or in the testing field, that is. But everyone was checked out. Oh yeah. We don't have to pay attention to those because it's not so noticeable. The gray cloud is starting to match the gray bug guts that got on the camera. That's what it is. It's a bug hit the lens of the camera. It's in the GoPro mount, so there's a protective shield. It's actually pretty funny. I can tell you a long story about that. But so my first GoPro was actually 2 of them. It was the Hero 2, and I got it because it was one of the best ways to do 3D videos and photos. And this was back when 3D, kind of came back around in about 2011. It's actually the camera I used to film the Project Newfoundland series, and there's several other series that will be coming out that were filmed in 3D. But the rig that, let's see how this looks. The rig that holds the two cameras, it's two GoPros in this kind of bigger housing unit, which is how the GoPros are held. And then there's this cable that connects one GoPro to the next, and they synchronize. It's literally called a sync cable, and the real cameras, the real 3D cameras, would also do it the same way, where it's kind of a gen lock system. So the left camera is synced up at the exact same frame. So they take frame 1 at the same time, then they move on to frame 2, frame 3 of the video. And so they're lockstepped, and they're supposed to be lockstepped in shutter speed and exposure and ISO. And so they're taking identical pictures, but one slightly to the left and one slightly to the right. And so that simulates our eyes, one on the left, one on the right. And a lot of times when you hear me talking about working with 3D content and everything, I'll talk about using the left eye or the right eye. And so that's the left camera or the right camera of the 3D cameras. But anyway, so it came out, and it was really good, but the housing it's a curve. It's a curved around the lens. And so even though they offered a waterproof case, you can't actually use a curved lens underwater, or a curved lens that is right against the lens of the camera. There are underwater housing units where it's a dome, and those are special because they're not on the lens. You need a space between the lens of air and the water housing. And so when you went underwater with the 3D GoPro, it would actually everything looked out of focus, because the water changes the focal point of the GoPro, and it just kind of messed everything up. And so there was a special third-party company where they would take apart. You would buy a new 3D housing kit from them, but they would just buy the GoPro one, and they would, they take it apart, and then they create a flat kind of lens protector that was also waterproof. And so there's a series I did underwater with 3D photography, and that's how I was able to do that. But so I still have the regular GoPro housing with the curved lenses, and that's what the bugs come and they hit that while we're driving. And so this bug actually hit the shield pretty early on, and that's why we have a lot of photos to edit it out, because while we're driving, like, I just put the camera on the car, and it takes a photo every 5 seconds, and then before stream I would go through and pick up all the good ones, and then we would edit them. But this one's being pesky, slowing us down. I almost ran out of gas today too. That was a scary experience. I was running from my doctor's office to get the lab work done, because I was like, we might as well do it all today. And we finally got to the hospital, and it was just like, there's a hospital and then the lab is right across from it. And so I'm running there, And we're like, we have no gas. Like, the car is yelling at us, I am empty. And I get in, and they're closed. And so we're like, we didn't get there in time for the lab. And so then we go, and we're like, we hope we make it to a gas station. And so we find a gas station, and we pull up, and I'm like, Mom, just drive into the nearest station, you know. And she's like, I think I'm gonna go to this one far on the other side of the gas station. It's like, we don't know how much gas we have. We might, you know, it might die in the middle, and then that would be terrible, because I have to push the minivan to a station, to a gas pump. But we made it. And then my mom got really excited because she was looking out the window, and there was this huge dog, and I don't remember what kind it was, but it was a rare one. It was really beautiful. And then it was funny because on the receipt it said, "Did you enjoy coming to this gas station?" And my mom was like, "Yes, it had a very good dog." And I was like, the gas station doesn't control who gets gas. But I was like, we should put on the receipt that we enjoy your clientele. You attract nice pet owners in cars, I guess you could say. I know the doctor, I told all kinds of stuff. It's a therapist. But they were giving me ideas on things things that I can try doing. And then I went over insurance stuff as well to see what I qualify for. But what was I saying? Yeah, the thing that's really knocking me out is kind of physical therapy. So my normal job that pays the bills is gardening. And I garden maybe 15 hours a week. Excuse me, I was almost choking. But so I garden about 15 hours a week. But then, so now with physical therapy, that's 3 times a week. And so for whatever reason, I don't have a lot of time to garden. That's because it's raining on the other days. But that's not really the issue. But so it'd be like, oh, it's nice I'm taking the day off. But I'm still just as tired because the physical therapy is not for me. It's for my grandmother. But I'm the big tall guy with the muscles, and I go around in physical therapy and I lift her up and we practice trying to get her to stand and everything. And so I'm holding up, this 90 pound person, which it's kind of light, but I have to stand there and hold for a long time. And then I have to do we're practicing walking, so she walks with me and everything. And so that's getting a little tiring, but then I have to do the restroom lifts and everything up and down 3 or 4 times a day. So the good news is I'm going to get some big muscles. I'm going to look like Terry Crews. And hopefully I can do that pectoral dance that he does. So even though I'm not gardening as much, I think I'm almost getting more of a workout now. Which is it's not true. It's different back muscles, which thank goodness. Because using the weed whacker or the leaf blower, for whatever reason, it kills my back, where it feels like I'm gonna crumble in half and just fall over backwards while my legs are still standing. But I guess it's all upper back muscles that I'm using to lift her, so it's easy. So fingers crossed we don't get any more bugs on the photos. The and something else I was gonna say about this. Yeah, it looks like we're gonna finish this one. I'm just gonna fast forward ahead, because I think they're all done. Yeah, this one's done. So let's edit another 400. See if we can do that. But I don't know, I feel better. I got some like alarming letters in the mail about health coverage, and I was like, oh, every year it's something else, you know. But I feel better about that. And I found a couple of jobs to apply for. I found one IT where you'd work at a school. I was like, that'd be awesome. Just fixing printers and an air-conditioned environment with heat as well. That's gonna be awesome. And then there's several retail ones where they want to hire and fire you, essentially. They don't call it that. They call it temporary employment, seasonal work, which is okay. So this one we're in Nebraska. I think this is called North Point. So we are going to fix the lens distortion. There we go. Now we are going to... Now this is in the early morning. We're going to have to change this multiple times through. And we're going to increase the contrast. There we go. Okay, we're going to synchronize those settings. Yeah, I see several where there's some bug guts. Man, I was really not feeling good those other 2 days, but I feel much better today. Well, much better right now. Like I don't know, at night I get kind of nauseous, but it feels like I'm having a seizure in my brain. It's just staticky and it feels like my eyes can't focus. But yeah, I've noticed that I can work through it a little bit. But this kind of started happening before. But what I would do, but before it was just, I guess because it was the first time it started happening. See, that's a big one. Before it was so new and I didn't know how to deal with it. It was just overwhelming. But now it's like, okay, I feel dizzy and nauseous. And I can just kind of work through it. It's also not as strong as that sensation used to be. I'm just gonna skip that. I had a dream that I was in China and I was in this really tall hotel building and there were like all these elevators and it's like, oh, make sure you stay in the lobby, don't go out of the hotel. And I was like, well, I kind of want to go walk around because I was like, yeah, I'm in China, I have to explore a little bit. But then so I go and I go out and there are all these codes you have to enter if you want to go out of the hotel, where it's kind of like, are you sure you want to leave? Are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go out. So I go out and I'm walking around the streets and I'm like, okay, it's weird because there's nobody around. And then I decide to go back into the hotel, but there's this key code you have to enter and it doesn't go into a lobby or anything. It takes you straight into the elevator, which goes straight into your room. And so I'm trying to enter in my room number and it won't take it. It won't accept my room card. But then this person comes running past on the outside and I'm like, uh-oh. And so then 3 more people go running past. I'm like, ah. And so then I see what they're running from and there are all these zombies coming down. And I was like, great. Zombies. And so they're all attacking me, but it's not a bad dream. It's ever since I went on antidepressants, I have these dreams and I'm very aware of it, that in the dream, not that I'm dreaming, I don't know that I'm dreaming. In general, my dreams are more conscious than I think most people are, but like I almost always remember my dreams when I wake up. But in the dream I was like, this should be terrifying. You know, I'm being swarmed by zombies, they're all over me, and I'm like punching them and try to get back, but it's kind of comical. And so that's kind of the funny thing, because when I started taking the antidepressants, I've heard from other people that the way you sleep changes and everything. And so I definitely have more kind of nightmare, scary dreams, but they're not scary. It's just like, it's the same dreams that would normally terrify me or wake me up and like you don't want to go back to sleep or anything. But in the dream it's just like kind of like I just chuckle. It's like, this is funny. And it's like somebody's trying to eat my head, or I'm getting chased by a bear, or creepy stuff. And but now it's just like, ha ha ha. And so it's kind of weird. And so that's kind of, I mean, in my case, that's a good thing. But I actually, when I hear other stories about people that start taking antidepressants, it actually goes the other way. They usually get more, scary nightmares and stuff, and it is more terrifying. But for whatever reason, all my nightmares are like comical almost to me. Like, they're still terrifying. I'm still trying to get away. I'm trying not to get eaten by zombies or anything, but it's just like in my head in the dream, I'm just chuckling and like, well, if I die, I die, whatever. It's been real. I guess my brain doesn't take it seriously anymore. I'm planning on going flying. I ordered parts and I was supposed to be able to fly Thursday, tomorrow, but the parts that I ordered didn't fit, and I was gonna keep the parts even though they were useless to me, but I ended up returning them, and they were super friendly about it. They're like, "Oh, sorry." And I was like, "Yeah, me too." But the new parts should be coming tomorrow, which I will be very excited to see if they actually come tomorrow, because they did not ship till like today at 11 a.m., which is unusual. I ordered them Tuesday, and so usually they ship Tuesday night, and they didn't ship till this morning, and so they say it's in New Jersey, and they're like, it's on schedule. And so I was like, well, because usually the night before it delivers, it's somewhere in Michigan. But by the time I stream again tomorrow, I'll let you know if it comes. But it won't come in time for me to go flying tomorrow. But fingers crossed. What happened was on last Friday, I woke up early. I went to the park to fly my remote-controlled airplane, and I set everything up. I put the cameras on it, and what's a little different is this plane is smaller, so I can't put 3 cameras on, but I have a 360 camera, which is not as heavy as 2 cameras, and then I have a really light camera, so instead of 3 cameras, 3 big ones, there's 2 little. One little one and another medium-sized one. And like if you see them in real life, they're really tiny cameras. But in terms of weight, one is heavier than the other. And so I picked it up, I threw the airplane in the air, it took off. It was a little rough taking off. It kind of went like a wave up and down, but then I finally got it to gain some altitude, and then I'm bringing it back around towards me, and the plane's flying, great, and then it just motor turns off, and it was really cool because the motor turned off, but the autopilot was still on, so it was really interesting to kind of see because even though I was pulling up, the autopilot really kept it level. And so it just did this graceful kind of, not fall, but once I realized it couldn't pull up, I nosed it down, and it just beautifully landed, of course in bushes far away from where I was. But that was okay, because I wasn't high enough to where I could return to where I was standing. But nothing broke, nothing like that. What ended up happening is the motor died, and this plane has been troublesome ever since I got it. The original plane that I used, and it's for a series I called the Flight of Albie. The plane is named after an albatross, so I call it Albie. But it But this one, I throw it in the air, and the speed controller dies, mid-flight, and starts smoking, so I land quickly. And then I try flying again, and the battery's too heavy, so I have to order a new battery that's half the size, which means half the flight time. So instead of being a 20-minute flight time, I can only fly for 10 minutes, if I'm lucky. And then, so then this time the motor died. And so this airplane, it cost a little under $100. And so that's why I'm not complaining too much. I mean, it's okay for an under $100 plane. But a lot of these problems happened not so much because of the plane, but the first problem that happened was I like to do battery tests where I have it in my garage and I'll see how long it can run at 100% throttle, or what I usually do actually is I have it run at 100% throttle and then I have it for like 20 seconds, which simulates when you throw it in the air and you have it try to take off. But I'm gonna get rid of this. Okay, there we go. That one just stays. But yeah, so I do the battery test where I have it go full blast, and the plane it's kind of stationary. I have it sitting in the garage where it can't move. So I have it on 100% throttle for 15-20 seconds, and then I bring it down to 45% throttle, and then that's kind of like how fast it would be, how much throttle it would have if it was just cruising along in the air, kind of at the same altitude. And so with one battery I have, it can do that for 40 minutes. So a 30-second full blast burst down to 40%. And so because it can do it for 20 minutes, I only fly for 12 minutes, which means that I always have, once my timer comes on my phone, I set it to 12 minutes. It means it's time to land, but because I know I have an extra 10 minutes, I can slowly start coming back to land. Like I don't have to rush to land because I'm going to run out of power. I get to land on my own terms, but I still try to land, close to when the timer comes off. And so that's how it works. So that was with the larger battery, but now this smaller battery, so I was testing the battery in the plane. And so I do the full throttle for 30 seconds, and then I bring it down to 40% on this new plane. And I was testing out the FPV goggles, which is like VR for the drone. And all of a sudden I start smelling, something burning, and I'm like, oh no. And so I take off the goggles and I look at the plane, and so the mount that holds the motor, the plastic was melting, and it was like, seriously? So the actual motor mount from the beginning, I haven't flown this plane once yet, had melted and the motor was coming out. So I was like, ugh. So I fixed that, and then it was just non-stop. So hopefully this is the last issue, the motor failing. But I put in a huge motor from my original airplane, and it fits. There's still a little bit of sanding I have to do to get it to fit smoother so that it spins more freely. But once I get this last part, it will hold the propeller, and hopefully things will work really well, because I got a huge electronic speed controller. It's for 60 amps. The one that I wasn't sure worked, it was only for 40 amps. And I don't plan on using the full 60 amp. The battery only does 40 amps. The reason why you would get a slightly larger speed controller is because kind of quality. Like if you get a 40 amp speed controller, yes, it can handle maybe up to 40 amps, but you'll also get pretty hot at 40 amps, if that makes sense. So even though 40 amps is the limit and it says it can go to that limit, you should really only use that on like a 30 amp motor or something, so it's not always, you don't have the chance of it overheating. And so now I have a big one where the motor is 40 amps, but the speed controller can go up to 60. And so hopefully it always stays nice and cool, because I'll never go full throttle. And I can actually program the controller to never go full throttle. So fingers crossed that I don't have to buy any more parts for the aerial photography studio Project Aerospace, because it's, I'm getting close to the point where it's like, maybe I just forget about fixed wing remote control airplanes altogether, because flying quadcopters, which are like the helicopters with cameras, a lot of times when people say drones, that's what they mean, is the quadcopter. Just means it has 4 propellers. There are also octocopters, which have 8 propellers, and one of my first ones actually had 6, and it was this little drone with 6 motors. I could tell you stories about that drone. It was a good drone while it lasted. It was about $60, and at the time I thought that's a good price, but with the story I'm about to tell, it actually kind of wasn't. It should have been maybe $20. I say that because the drone I use now all the time, that's a pretty reliable quadcopter, was $80. And so the drone I use now is called the Bugs 3, and it's one of the most inexpensive drones you can get that can carry like a GoPro or a GoPro style camera, and it holds it well. You can't have a GoPro and a gimbal. I can't do that. But there are ways that I get kind of smooth motion without having to use a gimbal. And so that's a good one. The Bugs 3. This other one that was not good. Well, in the beginning it was good, and that's important to the story, was that it was a lot of fun to fly at the beginning. I only fly line by sight, which means I fly looking at the drone, and versus FPV, which is you have a camera on the drone and then you're looking on a screen or VR goggles. They're just called FPV goggles. The video from the drone, and it stands for first pilot view. So you're in essentially like the first perspective of the drone. And so that is fun to fly. But even when I'm flying with the FPV, I only fly within line of sight, which means I never fly farther than I can see the drone. So if I take off the goggles, I can see it with my naked eye. There are a lot of drone videos where they're not flying line of sight, where they go fly, miles away, and that's not good. Not good at all. You have to have a special license, commercial drone license, to do that. So a lot of people think, oh, I got my drone, and then especially with the DJI stuff, I love them. I can't afford them, but a lot of people, and they're really good, but they have so many, pilot assist features that people get kind of a little lazy, and they're like, oh, no problem, I'll go fly 600 feet in the air. Well, with the drones, you're only supposed to go up to 400 feet. And so the DJI makes it really easy, and it will fight the wind and everything, so you'll think you're a good pilot when really most of the work is being done with the autopilot and all those features. And so if it loses a connection and you can't see where it is, you have no way to know how to bring it back to you. Yes, they have return to home feature, which is where it will return to where you flew. But if it loses signal and the return to home doesn't work, I mean, it's just gonna fall out of the sky. And so flying within line of sight just means you can always see the drone with your naked eye. And because of that, you can always guide it back to yourself. You can. And it's actually, I noticed that flying line of sight, I have much better elevation control versus when you're flying an FPV, because the camera angle is so wide that with wider angles everything looks far away. And so I just did this practice run where it looked like oh no. Where it looked like I was staying level and everything, but then I'm actually watching the drone versus what it looks like I'm doing with the video link, and it's like, oh my goodness, the drone is going down 2 or 3 feet, and you can't even tell in the video link, but like looking at the drone with the naked eye, it's like you just dropped 3 feet, and it looks exactly the same in the VR goggles as it does when you're 3 feet higher. So that's good to know. That you would think flying from the drone's perspective, that would give you more control, but it also means it gives you more directional control, but it also means that your perspective is not as accurate. And again, that's just because it's a wide angle lens. It's really difficult to gauge distance with a really wide angle lens, and the lens that most of the lenses they use for the FPV cameras are like 120 degrees and very close to 180 degrees, where you can see almost everything to the left and to the right. So you know what? We're going to stop here. We got so much work done. We edited about 390 photos. We'll continue from where we left off. I marked this as yellow, so I'll come back. I will upload the photos we edited earlier today and Sunday, and I'll make the link public sometime tomorrow, for sure, before I start streaming, but it will probably be later in the day. We got a big day tomorrow, so I'm gonna be tired. Tomorrow is a video game stream, so I'm feeling pretty good about Destiny. We'll see how nauseous I am, but if I'm not really nauseous, we'll do an hour or 2 instead of a half hour. I feel really comfortable streaming 2 hours, but hopefully things go well. So I want to thank everyone for coming out. I hope to see everyone tomorrow. Bye-bye.